Okay. Hello, everybody. We have quite a lot of people here. Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing well and your summer is going well. Can everybody hear me properly? Good. Okay, so welcome and thank you so much for joining the International Relations Council for today's International Career Series, which is Translation and Interpretation. The International Career Series is designed to help you explore different international career paths, whether you're graduating and entering the job market, looking for a change, or just curious. You'll soon hear from an individual who can share their work in an international field, offering insight into their own educational background, career paths, and recommendations for your own search. My name is Sadia Akhtar Orna, and I work as the Global Education Coordinator of IRC. For those unfamiliar, the IRC is a non-partisan and political organization. Our mission is to strengthen the global perspective of the Kansas community and beyond. We'll be recording today's event and broadcasting live on Facebook. So if you'd like to review this conversation at a later date or share it with someone you think might enjoy it, feel free to visit our YouTube or Facebook page. This recording will join many others as a free resource for the people of Kansas City to use and revisit time and time again. Okay, so today we are very pleased to be joined by Tingting Qin. Hi, Tingting.
Hi.
How are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll give a little bit intro. Tingting Qin is a professional English to Chinese translator, and she will discuss her experience with translation and interpretation. And she has an amazing professional background. So Tingting has been a professional English to Chinese translator and interpreter since 2007 and has served on MICATA's board of directors since 2017. She's a state certified court interpreter, DOJ immigration court interpreter, CCHI Certified Healthcare Interpreter, CATTI China Accreditation Test for Translators and Interpreter, Certified Translator, and a voting member of ATA. Some highlights of her past translation and interpretation experience include conference interpreter for Omaha Summit and Edgar Show Symposium, liaison and interpreter for Finnish Sailing Team in the 2008 Beijing Olympics, and co-translator of 5 books published by, I'm sorry about my pronunciation, Qingdao, is it Qingdao?
Yeah, you're so good.
Thank you. Qingdao Publishing Group in China. Besides translation and interpretation, Tingting has worked in the fields of education, marketing, and business management. With a BA in English education, an MA in English linguistics, and an MBA, Tingting's goal is to bridge language and cultural gaps among people through translation, interpretation, and education. In her spare time, Tingting enjoys traveling to national parks with her husband and daughter. Okay, so it is safe to say Tingting has fully engaged in the international experience, and we thank you, Tingting, so much for giving us some of your time. Thank you.
My pleasure.
For this event, please feel free to pose your question through the chat feature at the bottom of your screen throughout the program, and we will do our best to get to as many of them as possible during our Q&A period at that end. If you would like to connect with us at the IRC, please feel free to log on to our website, irckc.org, which will also be available in the chat box. We encourage you to check it out if you're interested in joining as a member, receiving our newsletter, or exploring other upcoming events. Thank you, and please welcome Tingting.
Thank you. Thank you, Arna. So first, I have prepared a short presentation that I'd like to share with all of you. So I'll share the screen now. Okay, so you can see my screen, should be.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. That's not what I wanted. Sorry. Okay, so welcome everyone again for coming to the International Career Series. Thank you, Arna, for introducing me. Today, I'm going to talk about working in translation and interpretation. I'm Tingting Qin, certified court and healthcare interpreter, a conference interpreter, and a translator. My working languages are English and Chinese. I have listed my email address here. If you'd like to get in touch with me after this presentation, please feel free to email me. So first of all, I'd like to share with you a little bit about how I became a translator and interpreter to see whether you can find any similarities. And so I was born and raised in Qingdao, China, a city of about 10 million people. I have always wanted to explore different cultures and travel around the world, but couldn't afford to do so when I was a teenager. I picked up English as my major in college with the hope that I may one day use it to explore the world. In the 2008 Beijing Olympics, you know, the Olympics is going on right now, so I guess I have to mention it. I had the opportunity to volunteer as a National Olympic Committee assistant. My job was to be a liaison and interpreter for the Finnish Sailing Team. I assisted the team with their daily life on and off venue as their point of contact among different departments of the Olympic Committee. I thoroughly enjoyed that experience and got to see and interact with people from all over the world during the games. I realized that I could use my language skills to help people communicate and understand each other and also feel comfortable in a different environment. At that time, I decided to become a translator and interpreter. I studied English linguistics with a focus on translation in graduate school and came to Missouri State University as an exchange student to improve my language skills. After I graduated from Qingdao University in China, I applied to the MBA program in Missouri State University and came back to the US. I picked the MBA program for two reasons. First, I could acquire business knowledge that would help me run my translation and interpretation business in the future. Second, it would help expand my vocabulary in many different business fields, such as accounting, finance, marketing, management, etc., which would help me specialize in business translation and interpretation. We'll talk about specialization just in a little while. So upon graduation, I worked in the business field for about 3 years. And in 2016, I started my own business in translation and interpretation. I have been doing translation and interpretation in the medical, legal, and business fields since then. And I also do subtitling and voiceover work. I have enjoyed being a translator and interpreter very much. I have been able to live in a different country and travel to many different places with my job. Of course, the traveling part has been suspended due to the pandemic, but I believe that it will resume sooner or later. So today, I'm very excited to share with you about this career in translation and interpretation. Okay, so before we dive into the details of the translation and the interpretation, I'd like to share with you about the prospects of translation of an interpretation career. So based on the Occupational Outlook Handbook from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the employment of interpreters and translators is projected to grow 20% from 2019 to 2029, much faster than the average for all occupations. So if you're thinking about becoming a translator or interpreter, and this is still a very good time to jump in because of this growth that will happen in basically the next 10 years. And then if you feel encouraged, let's talk about the different types of translators and interpreters. So I mentioned a little bit about the specialization. So as a translator or interpreter, you can specialize in many different subfields of translation and interpretation. For example, the healthcare, law, education, natural science, literature, audiovisual, that means maybe some subtitling or voiceover work, and many more. So it's a very inclusive field. No matter what your background is right now, if you want to become a translator or interpreter, you may find one or multiple fields that you are interested, and you can develop a specialization in those areas. There are translators or interpreters who work in-house, and there are also freelance translators or interpreters. The in-house translators or interpreters work as employees for other companies, organizations, the court system, or the government, and they enjoy the employee benefits such as paid days off, a relatively stable income, and also they enjoy the health insurance, 401k, retirement plans, all those good things. And as a freelance translator, you are a business owner, so you enjoy the freedom of setting up your own schedule. You can pick your own projects. You can acquire your own customers, and you can negotiate your own rates. And there are a lot of things you can do with your business, but at the same time, you have to shoulder the uncertainties of maybe the fluctuation of your income, or the volume of your projects are not stable. You may need to handle your own retirement plans and find your own medical insurance. So depends on your risk toleration and your aspiration in life, and also your interest and background. You may pick to specialize in different things in translation and interpretation, and also choose to become an in-house or a freelance translator or interpreter. So after we talked so long about the translators and interpreters, do you know the difference between a translator and an interpreter? And next, let's talk about some common misunderstandings of translation and interpretation. The first of it is the difference between a translator and interpreter. I don't know how many of you actually know the difference. And I have heard a lot of people from outside the translation and interpretation field um, basically refer to all translators and interpreters as translators. So they may say, would you translate this document for me? Would you translate for my doctor's appointment for me? Would you translate for my meeting for me? And so are those all translators? Actually, translators refer to the people who translate written documents from one language into another. And the interpreters interpret orally from one language into another. So a translator is more like in this first picture, and you translate written documents, and the interpreters are more like this lady in this second picture, and she's interpreting for, looks like a business meeting. So those are the differences between a translator and an interpreter. Now you probably feel like you're a step closer to becoming a professional in translation and interpretation now. And the second common misunderstanding is that being bilingual equals to being able to translate or interpret. Is that true? Well, as an experienced translator and interpreter, I can tell you that it is not true. Being bilingual lays down the foundation for you to become a translator or interpreter, but there is still a lot for you to learn in terms of translation or interpretation skills or professional ethics. And there are a lot of other skills for you to pick up before you can call yourself a professional in translation or interpretation. Let's just take singing as an example. You know, a lot of us may be able to sing a little bit, and a lot of Chinese people like me enjoy karaoke, but can we call ourselves a professional singer? Probably not. At least I wouldn't say myself is a professional singer. Um, so there is a very big difference between being able to sing or being a professional singer that you can sing for a big audience on stage. There's a lot going on behind the scenes before you move from just being able to sing to being able to be a professional singer. The same applies to the translation and interpretation field. So there's a lot you need to do behind the scenes to practice and learn before you can become a translator or interpreter. And the third common misunderstanding is your job looks so easy. So I actually heard that comment from a few of my clients. They would say, oh, your job looks so easy. You don't have to, lift any heavy items, or you're just here talking and it looks like your job is so easy. I actually take it as a compliment, because if I can make my job look so easy, it probably means that I'm doing a good job. So is this job really easy? Well, I don't think it is that easy. You actually put in a lot of mental work and a lot of practice and learning behind the scenes, like we just talked about, to really make your job look easy. And just like the singing example we can use it again. A professional singer may look like she's singing effortlessly on stage, but she may have gone through years of practice and preparation for that day. And the same goes with translation and interpretation. And we do a lot of preparation before an interpretation or translations. Before an interpretation session, you may have researched a lot before you translate a document. So there's a lot of effort that goes into translation and interpretation that people from outside the industry may not see when they just see you do your work. So I'm saying all of this not to discourage you from becoming a translator or interpreter, but at the same time, I would like to let you know that if you are serious of becoming a translator or interpreter, you really need to commit yourself and be ready to learn and grow in this field. If you haven't been scared away by me so far, and we can move to the interesting part of translation and interpretation. So we can talk about the international aspects of translation and interpretation. So there are many international aspects of translation and interpretation. If you would like to live anywhere in the world, for example, on a tropical island, doing jobs. Hold on for a second. There's something happening to my presentation. Oh, right here. So I have to move to the next slide. Yeah, right here. So there are many aspects, international aspects of translation and interpretation. If you would like to live anywhere in the world, for example, on a tropical island, doing jobs with your computer and internet, and interacting with clients from all over the world, or if you would like to travel all over the world.
Tingting, I think the presentation I cannot see. Can anybody else see?
Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. I moved it to a separate screen, so I guess maybe that's why.
That's fine.
So
Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm still continuing to imagine. So if you would like to travel all over the world with your job, being a translator or interpreter may be the right fit for you. Well, technically, those are all achievable with translation and interpretation, but restrictions also exist. For example, certain translation projects may require translators to reside in the same country for confidentiality concerns, and different parts of the world may have restrictions on their internet, but that may affect your work as a translator. The time difference may be an issue for you to accept an assignment on time. As an interpreter, traveling all over the country or internationally is possible, but it will be easier to do so if you live in a hub city with booming international business and easy traveling options, compared with interpreters who live in remote areas. If you are one of the few interpreters who are qualified to do a job, it's probably more likely for you to be selected for that job, even if you're a little far away. So I have been traveling all over the US interpreting for the immigration courts and conferences while based in Kansas City, and I thoroughly enjoy it. There are conference interpreters who also travel internationally frequently. Though traveling is basically suspended during the pandemic, people overall still prefer face-to-face communication. So I believe that in-person conferences will resume once it's safe to do so. Now it is more common to interpret remotely for courts or conferences, and that has been easy for me to take care of my family. So you can enjoy the work-life balance right now before in-person conferences or course sessions resume. So besides traveling and living internationally, you will also be able to bridge cultural and language gaps among people internationally on various levels, no matter whether it is for a doctor's appointment, a business meeting, or between diplomatic delegations. Part of your job will be to interact with people from all over the world. It is very rewarding, and at the same time, it can be challenging. So those are all the fine things that you may see with translation and interpretation if you're interested in becoming one now. So let's talk about what do you need to become a professional translator or interpreter. First of all, obviously, it's the language proficiency. You have to master at least two languages to be able to translate or interpret. Some more talented translators or interpreters may master multiple languages. My working languages are Chinese and English. I know some Japanese, but I'm not comfortable translating or interpreting with Japanese yet. So hopefully I'll improve in the future. And then it's education. And education can help you on multiple fronts as you prepare to be a translator or interpreter. First of all, education can help you get familiar with different registers of words and styles of speaking or writing. So the register of words refer to the level of formality, the way a speaker uses languages differently in different circumstances. So it can go all the way from very casual to very formal. For example, you may say, "What's up? Hey," to informal hi to a more formal hello to a very formal how do you do. So these are different registers of words. Through education, you can expand your vocabulary and get familiar with different register words and styles of writing or speaking. So that will enable you to translate or interpret from like street talks all the way to academic exchange or UN United Nations speeches. Um, those there are maybe translators or interpreters who just choose to specialize in a very specific niche area. For example, maybe one translator only translates academic paper in the financial field. So the registers of words and style are relatively fixed. It is possible, but if you get to know like a different styles of writing or have different registers, familiar with different registers of words, it will definitely help you expand into other subfields of translation and interpretation. And overall, it may bring you more clients and more income. So it's definitely an advantage to get education and get yourself ready for those different styles. And second, through education, you may acquire translation and interpretation skills. So you may learn how to convert the language, convert from one language into another, and you may learn the note-taking skills for consecutive interpretation. You may learn the simultaneous interpretation skills, and you may also learn some technology. And we will talk about technology later as well, some technologies that will help you become a better translator or interpreter. If you are interested in getting education in translation and interpretation skills, you may think about getting it from a local community college. if you are in the Kansas City area, the Johnson County Community College and the Metropolitan Community College both provide certificates in interpretation. Thanks to my coworker, Marcela Reyna, who was a freelance translator and interpreter. She taught at GCCC before, and she provided this information for me. She's working for the federal court in New Mexico now. So as you can see, when you enter this career, you can also choose to be a freelance translator or interpreter first, and later decide to work in-house and vice versa. So GCCC, the Johnson County Community College, provides different certificates in medical and legal for Spanish interpreters, and the Metropolitan Community College provides a program that combines medical and legal and is non-language specific. So if you're interested in these certificates, you may check on their websites. And if you are interested in getting a higher degree in translation or interpretation, you may think about going into universities such as the Middlebury Institute of International Studies in California, and there's University of Maryland also, and some other universities in the US or internationally that provide a higher degree in translation and interpretation. Those higher degrees will definitely help you to enter different fields of translation and interpretation as well. So if you are not yet in the translation or interpretation field yet, and you have a background in other fields, so don't think that if you become a translator or interpreter now, you'll just waste your background in your other fields. Like we talked about before, this profession in translation or interpretation is very inclusive. So we have a lot of translators or interpreters who were not language majors, or they didn't go through like a university program for translation or interpretation before. But after they acquire the necessary translation and interpretation skills, they can use their background in other fields, for example, like natural science, to have a specialization in that field when they become a translator or interpreter. And that way, they actually will have a competitive advantage than translators or interpreters who are language majors because of their knowledge in their separate fields. So you can definitely put your other background into practice if you become a translator or interpreter later in life. There are professional ethics that you have to learn as a translator or interpreter. Those are very important. For example, confidentiality, impartiality, etc. And you can get those by getting education in translation or interpretation, or you can get them by taking like a short-term training or a webinar, workshop, those things. And these professional ethics will definitely help distinguish yourself from like amateur translators or interpreters. Next one is a cultural competency. As we all know, languages don't exist just alone by themselves. They exist in the context of their own cultures. So to be a good translator or interpreter, you have to understand the cultures behind the languages that you are working with. That will help you understand the idioms, customs, connotation, words, all those things much better. So, for example, if I'm a Chinese interpreter for an English speaker, that English speaker said, well, it's raining cats and dogs today. Well, as a Chinese interpreter, I would immediately think about, well, does this sentence, does this phrase exist in Chinese? No, it doesn't. So if I interpret this directly into Chinese, then the Chinese listeners may think that it's actually raining cats and dogs, and that would be a problem. So instead of interpreting this directly into Chinese, I will interpret the meaning. So I will say it's raining heavily instead. And other phrases such as like maybe baby shower, people from different cultures who are not used to this, they may think it's a little shower for babies and a garage sale, and people may think that you're actually selling your garage. Or if a garage is not something that is common in that culture, they may not know what you're talking about in the first place. Let's use another example. Let's just because the Olympics are going on, so maybe we'll use the Olympics as an example. So if you are an interpreter for the Olympics and there's a person saying break a leg to an athlete right before this athlete starts the competition, well, you probably will think about, well, does this phrase mean good luck in the other target language? If it doesn't, if I say it, maybe that athlete will think that I'm cursing him or her rather than wishing him or her good luck. So instead of interpreting break a leg directly, maybe I'll just say good luck. So all of these things are based on your understanding of your source and target language cultures. So they are very important. You don't want to really cause any international conflicts because of a sentence or a phrase you are translating or interpreting. So public speaking skills are very important for interpreters because you are basically the voice for the person you are interpreting for. It may be in front of a couple of people, it may be in front of a group of listeners, or it may be in front of a large audience. So anything can happen. You just have to be prepared for it. And you have to interpret confidently to convey the tones and the meaning accurately for the person you are interpreting for. So the public speaking skills will definitely help you with that. And then the last but not the least is technology. So technology is in every field we are working in right now. So translation and interpretation are no exceptions. So for example, for translators, you may need to learn the CAT tools. They are computer assisted translation tools. These tools will help you improve your efficiency, your consistency, and will also help you when you work on a big project with other colleagues remotely. And then we have machine translation. Machine translation has developed a lot recently, but it's not to the level that it will replace human translators or anything close to that. But you can learn something about machine translation, its advantages and limitations. So whenever you can take advantage of it, you may use it to improve your own translation speed, or you will also need to tell your client when it's not appropriate to use machine translation by itself. And then there are also translators who do machine translation post editing. So they specialize in editing machine translated documents. And if you're good at graphic design, software, you may also pick up desktop publishing as an added service for your translation and interpretation. It is in high demand and a very lucrative field. And then for interpreters, during the pandemic, the demand for remote interpreting has been on the rise. So you have to learn some remote interpretation software and equipment. For example, you may need to learn the simultaneous interpretation function on Zoom. You may learn other software for remote conferencing, like maybe WebEx, BlueJeans, and you have to pick the correct headset and a mic for you. You have to learn how to set up your computer to really have these technologies work together. Sometimes to make a remote interpretation session work, I may have my computer, my headset, and my phone and my tablet all work together. So it can get quite complicated. Being tech savvy will definitely be an advantage for you if you become a translator or interpreter. So once you become a translator or interpreter, what will help you grow as a translator or interpreter? There are a lot of soft skills that you may master to help you grow. For example, the teamwork and customer service skills. And you may think that being a translator or interpreter means you work by yourself most of the time. Well, it can be true, but whenever there are larger projects, you may have multiple translators working on it. Or if you are interpreter, you may have team interpreting for a longer court trial, or you will have a partner if you are a conference interpreter interpreting for a conference. Good team working skills will definitely help you build excellent working relationship with your coworkers and colleagues. So that way you can get referrals from them, you can learn from them, you can explore a different field with their help. There are a lot of good things that can happen when you have good teamwork skills. And another one is customer service skills that will help you acquire new customers, maintain your current customers, and also get customer referrals. Some translators or interpreters may not pay attention to their customer service skills. So maybe their emails will sound kind of rude sometimes. Maybe their tones will sound impatient. All those things will hurt your customers' experience and eventually will hurt your income. And then there are leadership skills and entrepreneurial spirit. We talked about it before. The freelance translators or interpreters are business owners. So you need the entrepreneurial spirit to really drive your business performance. So you may go out there to acquire your own customers, you may negotiate your own terms, you may set your own price, and all of those things to help yourself move your business forward. And if, no matter whether you are in-house or you are a freelance translator or interpreter, you will need leadership skills when you are in charge of a bigger project with translators or interpreters, and that will help you move up in the organization as well. No matter you are new or you are thinking about becoming a translator or interpreter, or you are already experienced, I highly encourage that you join professional associations. For example, the ATA is the American Translators Association. MICATA is the Mid-America chapter of the American Translators Association. NAJIT is for legal interpreters, IE is for conference interpreters, and there are more associations like these. So I'm the secretary of MICATA, so I'm going to talk a little more about MICATA. So MICATA is the Mid-America chapter of the American Translators Association. We have members all over the nearby states. And also we have an annual conference in March of each year. Our membership fee is relatively low. So if you're thinking about exploring these associations and you're local here in the Midwest, you may consider joining MICATA. And all these other associations, most of them also have annual conferences that you can attend, and they have training sessions and webinars you can join, and you can do a lot of networking with people already in the field to find out what's going on in the industry and also find your own specialization. So these professional associations are very useful if you want to be a translator or interpreter. When you are confident with your translation or interpretation skills, you may consider taking these professional certification or qualification exams. For example, the ATA exam is for translators, the CCHI or NBCMI exam for medical interpreters, the state court or federal court exam for court interpreters, the Department of State qualification exam for translators and interpreters who are interested in becoming a federal contractor. And also there's a United Nations exam as well. So all of these exams are quite prestigious. You may pass one or all of, or if you're interested, I guess you can pass all of them as well. And then some interpreter or translator pass several of them. So after you pass one or several of these certification exams, it will definitely help you to be recognized as a highly qualified professional in this field, and you can be listed on different registries, and that will help you get a lot more clients than before. No matter you are certified or not, you need to be prepared to continuously learn and grow in this field. So if you are certified, there will be certain continuing education requirements for you to fulfill each year. So you can fulfill those requirements by joining these professional associations, taking their webinars, workshops, or by attending their annual conferences. You can also take these continuing education classes from private training institutes. If you are not certified yet, you also get to learn something new from different translation and interpretation projects all the time. For example, if you are a medical interpreter, you may interpret for heart surgery today, and tomorrow you may interpret for a clinical trial. Every day is different for a translator or interpreter, and you can learn a lot from preparing for these projects and doing all of your different jobs. So this is also another attractive aspect of being a translator or interpreter. It's never a boring job. You always learn something new on your job every day. So so far, if you are interested in becoming a translator or interpreter now, here are some resources for you to research by yourself. And this is basically the end of my short presentation. And do you have any questions?
Thank you so much, Tingting. That was wonderful. I learned so much. Like I told you at the beginning of the program when we were talking that I'm really interested in learning Chinese, maybe.
I'm
Yeah.
glad. I
Yeah.
hope you still want to do so after my presentation. It didn't
Yeah.
scare you or anything.
No. I mean, it was wonderful. I learned so much about translation and interpretation and differences. So I think, Paige, do you have a question? Somebody raised their hand. Okay, yeah. Okay, so there's a question by John. Do you think the computer machine translation will replace human one day?
Yeah, that's a very good question. I know we have a lot of discussions in the industry as well. And so far, I don't think that's going to happen. I think probably the trend is for computer or machine translation to help translators become more efficient at their jobs. So that's why we have those computer assisted translation tools. So overall, for the I'm not a computer expert, but a lot of the current translation or a lot of the current machine translation is based on collecting all these different materials, then they put them together and maybe calculate them, stuff like that. But they are lacking the main thing is that the machines, they don't think by themselves. So they can collect a lot of materials, and a lot of the times the translation can still be out of context. So, or they are not really considering the target audience, all those human things that they can't do. So unless the machines can think like humans, but at that time it's probably not only the translators or interpreters will be replaced, the entire human race may be at risk at that time. So I think the trend is probably for machine translation to help humans rather than to replace humans.
Okay, thank you. Paige texted, like put a text that they were just clapping and said thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, next question. Actually, there's a question by Paige now. What has your experience been with AI or neural translation?
Oh, okay. So I used the computer assisted translation tools, and that's a little different from AI. And so that tool basically use your own translation for your next project. So you can have translation memories stored there, and you can have your own vocabulary and to help you efficiently translate another document in this field. And then machine neural translation, I used for some projects that does not require confidentiality. It has a really tight deadline. Sometimes I would copy and paste it to a machine translation engine first. So then I will do editing based on that. So it's not like each time I only do a little bit of editing. I actually edit a lot of the machine translated material to make it sound more like a human or sound more natural. So I think for machine translation, if you are having maybe a daily conversation, that's not important, even if there's a little mistake here and there, and you can use it. For example, some of the people may use a software on their phone when they are dating someone. I don't know, maybe when you're dating someone, maybe the risk even higher. Anyways, so when you're talking with a person, just like everyday life, and then you may use it. But if a lot of things are at risk, like if it's a COVID-19 information that you need to post on the website for the limited English speakers to read, you probably don't want to use machine translation. First of all, there may be mistakes. And second, it's lacking human touch, and it just reads very rigidly. And some like it doesn't convey the tone very well. So maybe in English it sounds concerning, but when it's machine translated, maybe it just sounds like you are cold and heartless, something like that. The tone can be wrong as well. So there are still a lot of things for you to edit after a machine translated document is done. So that's why there are also people doing machine translation post editing.
Okay, thank you. One thing that I wanted to ask you is about how does somebody maintain the impartiality, or the ethics? For example, if there is something that can a professional be very impartial during their translation, like how that they maintain that ethic level of the site?
Yeah, the impartiality is especially important for like court interpreters, or if you're translating for court documents. And so you have to be really impartial. You don't want to be leaning towards the defendant or the plaintiff. So first of all, you shouldn't have any conflict of interest with either party. So you're not like a relative of one party or good friend of the other, something like that. If you are, you probably have to excuse yourself in that situation. And then when you are translating or interpreting, you have to really just focus on more like you don't really put words into that person's mouth, and you don't assume what they are thinking about, and you also don't become biased just because maybe, for example, this person injured another one with a gun, and you always have bad impression of guns. So when you are interpreting, you put your own emotion into it and something like that. So you have to be really impartial in the way you translate, in the way you act, and also in your tones.
Okay.
It's a high standard sometimes and needs some practice.
Right. So if there is a very, like you mentioned about COVID-19, right? If there's a very sensitive information that is going to the public, is there like multiple person who are doing the work, or like to double check that the right meaning is going to the public or the right information?
Yeah, ideally, there will be a translator and an editor working on the same document, but it also depends on what the client budget is and what their requirements are.
Mhm.
And so having two translators working on one budget, it will definitely be a little more expensive than just
Mhm.
hiring one translator. So yeah, so cross-checking is always better, but sometimes it's not that ideal. But even if you just have one translator, you probably have to make sure you really get a qualified person to translate. Otherwise, you can't really reach your communication goal very well. And machine translation is definitely not going to work in that situation.
Thank you. What would be your suggestion to somebody who is just right now is thinking of becoming, somebody like you one day? What would be your suggestion to them? Like, what kind of things they need to start thinking about or doing about?
Yeah, so for a person who's interested in becoming a translator or interpreter right now, first of all, you have to think about whether you are uh, you have mastered the two languages that you want to
Mm.
work on, and second, whether you know the cultures. So some people, for example, if I grow up in the U.S. and I learned some Chinese while I'm in school, and
Mhm.
but I've never been to China. I've never
Mhm.
really interacted with Chinese people. And then
Right.
even if you think your language may be okay, but maybe you're still lacking the culture part that
Right.
will make you really become a professional. So at that time, you may think about, maybe participating into more of the Chinese events here in the U.S., get to know more of the
Mhm.
Chinese culture, or you may also think about going abroad for a year or two, and that experience will definitely help you become a better translator or interpreter if you have the first experience in another country. That's why I came here as an exchange student in the first place, because I studied English for so long in China, but I had never been to an English speaking country at that time. So I came to the US to improve my language skills. And I think that really helped me move forward in language. And then after you master your language skills, and if you're interested now, I really highly suggest that you join one of these professional associations. So you talk with professionals. Maybe you can even find a mentor for you to really show you the rope, and maybe have you work on some projects and that they are working on, and review your translation or watch you interpret sometime, and that will really help you improve.
Thank you. Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Um, about mentorship. So you talked about joining these associations, and are they free to join for anybody, or is there
Um,
fee?
yeah, anybody can join, but I don't think they're free. For MICATA, we have a very low membership fee. It's
Okay.
only $25 and
Mhm.
$20 for renewing. And
Mhm.
ATA is a little more expensive, but ATA also has more resources nationwide. And so there's definitely a fee for joining each association, and some associations also have requirements, like maybe you have to work certain years in this field, or you're certified, something like that. So different associations have different requirements. If you join these associations, I feel like they have a really valuable resources for you. I attended, by joining MICATA, I got to know so many qualified and excellent translators or interpreters. It really has been helping my career. And they also showed me how to specialize in this field, or how to take that certification exam. And they're just very valuable insights that you can get from these associations.
What kind of work you like to do in this field? What is your favorite?
My favorite, probably, I just like to travel with my job. So
Mhm.
I really enjoyed like traveling nationwide for the immigration court, though it's temporarily suspended, but I got to go to so many different cities and also very remote areas for the immigration court. I got to see a lot of different things maybe other people wouldn't see usually. And also for conferences, you can do the same thing. So I just enjoy this traveling part. And also you got to know so many different people from different fields. And when you interpret for these conferences, you also get to know all the details about very specific areas that you usually don't have any knowledge of. So it's just all exciting experience.
Awesome. Okay, is there any other final thought you would like to share with the people who are potentially thinking of going into this field, or anything that you would like to share with us before we close?
Yeah, just like I mentioned before, this field is a very inclusive, it's very diverse, and people with all backgrounds may consider becoming a translator or interpreter if you have the language skills, but also be prepared to really work hard towards becoming a professional. It doesn't look as easy as it is not as easy as it looks, and you have to put in a lot of hard work to acquire your certification. And the certifications I mentioned, they are all pretty hard to pass. Many people fail them many times. If you fail them a few times, so don't worry about it. And a lot of people do that. And once you are certified, you're really going to be valued more of a highly qualified professional. So don't be frustrated, but also don't underestimate this profession.
Right. Thank you so much. I have learned so much from this. Like, there's so many things that I didn't know, and I hope it was very profound experience for everybody who's here right now. Thank you everyone for being here. We would love to thank you, Tingting, so much for donating your time and providing some very interesting information about your career history and about this whole sector in general. We'd also like to thank you all for your continued support of the IRC. I would like to close by putting a plug in for some of our upcoming programs in particular. And you can also go into our website, irckc.org. And if you go to the What We Do section, there's an IRC event calendar that has all the events that we do. So some of our upcoming events that are coming, the growing influence of cryptocurrency is coming. It's on August 3rd. And then there is the International Career Series, Teaching English Abroad, South Asia and the Middle East, that is on August 6th. We're also having the Lexicon, the language program that we do on 9th of August, Croatian. And then we also have the National Security Series going on. So please feel free to look at our events calendar. If you're interested in any of them or any other IRC activities, we encourage you to check out our website for more information, as I have mentioned. Thank you so much for being here once again. Please stay well, and I hope to see you guys soon again in one of our events. Thank you, Tingting, one more time.
Thank you, Arna. Thank you all for participating.